All right, so I guess I finally figured this shit out. God, YouTube is so fucking lame. They try to make you set up this encoder and all this other BS when all I'm trying to do is stream from a Hangout like this. Oh God, that took me way too long to figure out. All right, let me see if I can actually hear this. Okay, seems like we're actually on air. All right, yeah. I had originally pulled up a bunch of articles I wanted to read live to you guys, just as kind of a thank you, because I haven't logged into this account in a very long time, but I noticed that I still am getting some views on my past videos, and you know, since you guys have continued to subscribe, I feel like I owe you at least that. I had a couple of articles here that were from back in the day. I only have 4 pulled up right now. Let me try and share the screen here, actually, if I can figure that out. Screen share, okay. All right. Yeah, I don't know if you guys had caught my first couple attempts there to launch a live stream, but it didn't really go too well. The default setting when you try to click live and do that is either you have to go on camera, like it's a camera only live stream and you can't disable it, or you have to set up an encoder because that's what, the gaming kids do or something like that. And YouTube just assumes that everyone's a fucking autist if they're going to stream, that they're going to stream some fucking Call of Duty bullshit. So I had to like do a workaround just to figure out how to do a regular ass stream like this, the normal basic way. Okay. So I wanted to read this article first. Give me 1 second. Actually, I have to move something out of the way. Okay, so this article. I'm gonna have to disable my own viewing of the chat because it's just killing my memory right now for some reason. All right, so this article was published over 4 years ago, but I think it's still great and it's written extremely well, and it has kind of the same Virgin / Chad meme here before the Virgin / Chad meme. All right, so it's entitled "Common Beta Male Body Language Mistakes." I see this a lot in clubs and bars where noise is a problem, but also in quieter venues where the only problem is the beta male doing it wrong. And we can see this proto Chad Virgin meme here. All right, the horrible combination: sideways lean in plus side of mouth talking plus craning neck. It's the beta male body language try failure. Half of game is knowing what not to do. The ludicrous, enfeebling posture may tickle man boobs Fatrell's porcine labia, but it'll turn off any woman who was the recipient of it. If you wonder why this behavior is beta, you have to see it in action. Seeing is believing, but the theoretical explanation goes like this. Awkwardly leaning in to speak to an indifferent or distracted woman subcommunicates a frantic need for her attention, which is value lowering, and girls prefer their men enthroned at a higher social value plateau than themselves. Leaning in sideways adds the element of cowardice. Now he is trying to get her attention without putting too much of himself on the line. Leaning in sideways while craning the neck and talking out of the corner of one's mouth is exponentially beta. Pained tentativeness and neediness, distress cues, are the opposite of alpha male could give a fuck. So, what do you do instead if you find yourself standing like this next to an oblivious girl? If she can hear you from where you're standing, all it takes to get her attention is a pivot of the head so you're looking at her and preferably down at her through one eye. Keep your body facing forward. She hasn't yet earned your full nonverbal engagement. If she reciprocates, you may turn more towards her and continue the conversation / foreplay. I like when he does that, like crosses out the real word, but then puts what would be the politically correct word in exchange for that. If the scene is loud and she won't hear you from way up there, you'll have to engage more forcefully. This means boldness in action. That's a key point right there, guys. If you must make your verbal intentions known over ambient noise, then do it with pride of purpose. Turn to face her so that you obstruct most of her view and she can't mistake your solicitation for the mumbles of a passing derelict. Penetrate her ear space with a diaphragm exposed vocal timbre so that you don't have to bend at the waist too far. The truly overconfident cads may want to bend over until their lips are practically brushing the maiden's cochlea and speak straight into the hamster ear trumpet. Excessive venue noise, unfortunately, does not allow much leeway for indirect, uncommitted body language openers. But that could be a good thing for a lot of men who, from the sight of them, treat women like they're museum artworks protected by lines of tape on the floor. That one penalty of castration. That's some of the old classic artistes right there for you. See if there's anything funny in the comments section. Got a couple windows open here. I'm not sure if the chat comes where it's going to pop up at, or if I have to load up the stream itself to see it. Let me just see if I can open that up. I'm not sure. I doubt there's anyone in there anyways, but I just want to make sure. Oh. Goddamn. Everything runs so goddamn slow when I'm in a video chat or anything like that. Thanks for sticking with all the BS. I mean, I'm trying to... I was thinking about uploading like another recording, but just the live stream format is so much more convenient just to get content out there. Not that I have to do much editing anyways, but it's just more convenient. And that's why everyone else does that now. Hopefully I will put out some more videos. I just don't have that many more articles that I'm trying to like read. If you guys want, if you want a particular one or a series read, then go ahead and leave a comment or email me or something like that, and I'd be glad to do it. I haven't obviously uploaded much lately just because I've been busy with other projects and work and stuff, but I haven't forgotten about this channel. So if you guys want more content, just go ahead and let me know, and I'd be happy to provide you with that. So, all right, let's go to the next one. Yeah. Because it's slowing me down. God damn. Fucking Hangouts, this piece of shit. Okay. Drink my soy juice latte there. Okay, so this article is published December 2013, entitled "Sociopathy is Increasing in America." Is sociopathy prevalence on the rise in America? According to the author of the book, The Sociopath Next Door, it is. American culture has become a breeding ground for sociopaths. Quote, and disturbingly, the prevalence of sociopathy in the U.S. seems to be increasing. In the 1991 epidemiological catchment area study sponsored by the National Institute of Mental Health reported that in the 15 years preceding the study, the prevalence of the antisocial personality disorder had nearly doubled among the youth in America. It would be difficult, closing in on impossible, to explain such a dramatically rapid shift in terms of genetics or neurobiology. Unquote. Male sociopaths do better with women. This is indisputable. If sociopathy is increasing in America, then we must look to the foundational market of human interpersonal relations, the sexual market, to discover the source of this increasing sociopathy. Quite simply, if more women are more often rewarding sociopaths with their sex, then the supply of sociopathy will increase. Under what conditions would women swoon for sociopaths? Very harsh conditions, for one. An emotionless Machiavellian is a useful mate to have when survival is constantly tested. Another social condition that probably redounds to the benefit of sociopaths is one which women are incentivized by a coddling state and by women's own economic self-sufficiency to favor the love of maximum tingle-generating cads over comfy, cozy betas. Tellingly, for the currently cratering US, diversity may play a crucial role in assisting the rise of the sociopaths. Quote, in this opinion, he is joined by theorists who propose that North American culture, which holds individualism as its central value, tends to foster the development of antisocial behavior and to also disguise it. In other words, in America, the guiltless manipulation of other people blends with social expectations to a much greater degree than it would in China or more group-centered societies. I believe there is a shinier side of this coin too, one that begs the question of why certain cultures seem to encourage pro-social behavior. So much against the odds, how is it that some societies have a positive impact on incipient sociopaths who are born with an inability to process interpersonal emotions in the usual way? I would like to suggest that the overriding belief system of certain cultures encourage born sociopaths to compensate cognitively for what they are missing emotionally. In contrast with our extreme emphasis on individualism and personal control, certain cultures, many in East Asia, dwell theologically on the interrelatedness of all living things. Interestingly, this value is also the basis of conscience, which is an intervening sense of obligation rooted in a sense of connectedness. If an individual does not, or if neurologically he cannot, experience his connection to others in an emotional way, perhaps a culture that insists on connectedness as a matter of belief can instill a strictly cognitive understanding of interpersonal obligation. An intellectual grasp of one's duties to others is not the same attribute as the powerfully directive emotion we call conscience, but perhaps it is enough to extract pro-social behavior from at least some individuals who would have behaved only in antisocial ways had they been living in a society that emphasized individualism rather than interrelatedness. Though they lack an internal mechanism that tells them they are connected to others, the larger culture insists to them that they are so connected, as opposed to our culture, which informs them resoundingly that their ability to act guiltlessly on their own behalf is the ultimate advantage. This would explain why a Western family by itself cannot redeem a born sociopath. There are too many other voices in a larger society implying that his approach to the world is correct. And that's the end of the quote from the study. Which I think is pretty pretty poignant shit. Sorry, I have to load up the chat on my phone because my computer is too fucking slow to do that. All right. And then the guy says in there, read some Illimitable Man blogs. I've read his. I remember reading Illimitable Man back in like when the Red Pill subreddit days, which I think he's still there. I haven't read the Red Pill subreddit in a long time. Which I heard it got quarantined the other day I read it. So I'm not surprised. That's one of the reasons I stopped posting there. That and they became too fucking just goofy. Reddit is full of fucking virgins. The red pill red subreddit's no exception. All right, so back to the article. As Robert Putnam has discovered, ethnic and racial diversity reduces trust and social cohesion. Radically heterogeneous societies lose their aura of connectedness. With this atomized, unraveled milieu, sociopaths thrive. They thrive not only because any communitarian breaks on their behavior are removed, but also because the culture begins to value and exalt the very special talents of the sociopath. This is an unavoidable transition when people feel unmoored from a larger social family and adopt a pathologically individualist look out for number one attitude to life in response to the vague but palpably ominous threat of rainbow something. Faux, I don't know, one of Hartis's words, faux fixations, I think is what he's trying to say. To be a high-level player, you have to be blessed with a touch of sociopathy. Without that trait for timely detachment, you will empathize too much with the particular needs and reproductive goals of women. That distracting emotional resonance will hinder your ability to hurt a woman's feelings, and sadly, you'll discover rare is the woman who joyfully surrenders her body to a man who is careful to spare her feelings. So sociopathy has its privileges, but no nation of sociopaths can ever put a man on the moon. Yeah, he's right about that last second to last paragraph is so important. I'm going to read it again. And in this day and age, 5 years after it was written, I would say to be any level of player at all, not just a high level player, you would need a touch of sociopathy. So I'm going to read that again. To be a high level player, you have to be blessed with a touch of sociopathy. Without that trait for timely detachment, you will empathize too much with the particular needs and reproductive goals of women. That distracting emotional resonance will hinder your ability to hurt a woman's feelings, and sadly, you'll discover rare is the woman who joyfully surrenders her body to a man who is careful to spare her feelings. That says it all right there. Let's see if there's any good comments to read. Not really. I could read a great books for men comment, but I don't think I have to explain why that would be difficult. All right, now let's move on to the next one. Jesus Christ. I need to get a new computer. This one's a piece of shit. Okay. This is something 2011. This article. And I think it's something a lot to hear too. Ever since the incel thing went mainstream, all you hear about from the MGTOW crowd is the same bullshit about well, basically an obsession with looks, and it's just they use it to make excuses on why not to even try. Hartis has talked about this many times. This is one of the articles in which he makes the case. All right, so published in November of 2011, Women's Shifting Perception of Male Looks. A critical sex difference is in how men and women perceive the looks of the opposite sex. A woman's beauty is a powerfully visceral stimulant of men's desire and tends to remain so until their beauty begins to fade in earnest by the early to mid-30s. Men's looks, in contrast, provide a more muted stimulation of women's desire, less visceral and more aesthetic compared to the hungering stimulation female beauty causes men to feel. And this stimulation of female desire tends to manifest in two ways. Women can be drawn to men's looks upon first sight, just as men are by women's looks. But unlike men, women can and will nearly instantly lose the thrall they feel in the presence of a good looking man should his behavior and conversation come across as unattractively beta. Beta-ness can kill the advantage of good looks dead. The same is not the case when the sexes are reversed. That is, a beautiful bitchy woman will still make men feel horny, even as the bitchy attitude discourages men from treating such a woman kindly. When women are confronted by a man with low status behavior that is incongruent with his high status looks, they will never resolve the incongruity to the benefit of his status. Women will always resolve the incongruity to the detriment of his looks. Fucking A right. Women will gradually perceive a man's looks getting better over time if he possesses other attractive traits. In other words, charm, fame, social savvy. Or if the woman in question has fallen in love with him. Time in this context can be as long as years or as short as a few minutes. A man running tight game will be perceived as better looking by women. A man in a relationship who is loved by his girlfriend or wife will also enjoy the benefit of positively altered female perception of his looks. Again, the same phenomenon does not exist when the sexes are reversed. An ugly woman, no matter how charming, wealthy, famous, kind, or personable, will not be perceived as better looking by men. A similar dynamic operates within relationships. In fact, a woman in a long-term relationship can actually become less attractive to her lover as his desire for variety begins to outcompete his feelings of love and loyalty. There is one caveat. Early in a relationship, when the feelings of love are strongest, 3 months to 2 years, depending on his basal oxytocin level, a man will be so infused with a dopamine high that his woman will seem more beautiful to him than when they started fucking. Although this cannot be stressed enough, never will she seem more beautiful than when he first laid eyes on her. That initial blast of lust is impossible to duplicate. The above observation of the female inclination to perceive a lover's looks in a more favorable terms explains the time-tested wisdom that a woman in love thinks her man better looking than he is. I believe this change in perception is so powerful, it actually reflects a neural rewiring of the woman's brain circuitry when gazing upon the visage of a man she loves. Similar radical alterations in female perception happen when a woman is pleasantly surprised by a charismatic man who is successfully seducing her despite his unimpressive looks. And a comment from Stingray writes, quote, I knew a guy in high school who had severe burn scars covering more than half of his face. Dated one of the most popular girls in school for a long time and was liked by all the other girls as well. Everyone who knew him said that after knowing him for only a short time, the scars were invisible. They simply became a part of who he was and went completely unnoticed. Attitude is everything. Looks may slow down those initial reactions, but if you move beyond that and maintain a confident frame, they will not hinder you as much. And then he's got a link to the Scar Game post, which is it's a good one. It's about what you would expect, though. A man's physical flaws are like disappearing ink. Exposure to a woman's love or even her interests will cause them to fade away. And here's some real-world experimental evidence that manly confidence influences women's perceptions. Quote, according to a university study, women can still identify a physically attractive man just by reading his profile. It found good-looking men were able to convey their confidence and attractiveness in their written self-description, and that women volunteers were able to recognize their beauty without being shown the lonely heart's accompanying photograph. Our data suggests that attractive individuals wrote texts, profiles, that conveyed confidence, and it was perhaps this confidence which primarily signaled quality to the women. The associate professor added that such confidence may arise from attractive people's general sense of their high mate value. No shit. Take-home lesson. If you're an ugly man, you can influence women to perceive you as more physically attractive than you are by projecting the confident demeanor of an attractive man. A low-status man can influence female perception by projecting the attitude and body language of a high-status man. This is the crux of game. All right, let's see if there's any interesting comments here. Okay, yeah, this one. Sidewinder says the best evidence for this point, interracial relationships. Much more common to see a white woman and a black man than the reverse. Why? Two forces at work. Number one, people are inherently attracted to members of their same race and often find members of other races to be physically unattractive. But number two, status, confident frame, i.e., game, can cause a woman to become attracted to a man even when not particularly attracted to his looks. I didn't think that's where he was going with that comment, but he's not wrong. I would have said that on average, a black guy would be more confident than your average white beta, and that would trump the looks thing or trump the surface level attraction. All right, there's another post. I had a couple more pulled up before, but I lost them because my browser crashed. All right. The number one killer of your game. And this was published September 2014. Let's see. Look at the chat here. Game says rich guys up to get me too'd. No, I don't agree at all. I think all the guys getting me too'd are guys without game. Harvey Weinstein, so forth. Louis C.K. I think it's safe to say neither one of those guys had game. I'm wondering if Louis. I heard that he had taken a hiatus from touring and performing because of the allegations. That's kind of funny if that's the case. All right, so the number one killer of your game, published about 4 years ago, September 2014. The number one killer of your game is a function of time, but it's not time itself. Time, a merciless decay directive that commissions the end of everyone, is too crude and imprecise an agent of character change to rely on it for guidance. We need to measure a new reality closer to the heart. Around the age of 11 or 12, preteens experience a significant reorganization of their brains. New neural connections are made while gray matter is pruned. This process continues throughout adolescence and doesn't fully end until the mid-20s when the brain reaches its final resting phase. The adult you is, in a mental sense, forever 25. The biggest brain change in the early teens years is the shift away from prefrontal development and the shift towards emphasis on the amygdala, the brain's emotional center. We become limbic creatures, more feral and impulsive once we hit our teenage stride, because our decision-making ability, especially under conditions of stress, is then relegated to the control of the amygdala. There is sound evolutionary reason for this brain change. If teenagers were overly risk-averse and worried about the consequences of their actions, they would never take those first vital steps to establish their identity by trying new things. Instinctive bravery or stupidity is what pushes baby birds out of the nest to fly. Without that neural window of risk attachment encouraging teens to bust out of their comfort zones, they would never leave home, rightly calculating that life is perfect under the auspices of their hearth managers. After those heady teenage years, there's a slow loss in the mental capacity for satiating curiosity and for risk attachment. This, too, likely has evolutionary origins. Adults who remain wild and thrill-seeking like teenagers do their own children no good, because what those little shits need more than anything is a stable family environment. We are as hardwired to step into the comfort zone as adults as we are to step out of it as preteens. There's another word for the risk attachment that defines the teenage/early 20s experience: passion. Game is all about taking social risks and withstanding blows to the ego. I'm going to repeat that because that's fucking true. Game is all about taking social risks and withstanding blows to the ego. It's about reckless experimentation. It's about inner energy that drives a man to seek new or better lovers and romantic experiences. It's about denying the soothing siren song of comfort zones with force 10 tenacity. Game is, in essence, the exalting of passion over passiveness. Man, truer words have never been spoken at that. Jesus. Unfortunately, game has a mortal enemy, and that's the brain itself. Oh, shit. Pardon me. Okay, unfortunately, game has a mortal enemy, and that is the brain itself. The loss of risk attachment, the pure energy of passion for the gain of risk aversion, the serene submission to contentment will kill a man's game more completely and with greater finality than the physical shortcomings, than financial ruin, than even marriage and its punitive bindings. The number one killer of your game is the same inexorable biomechanical algorithm that killed your passion and replaced it with placidity, your changing brain. If you are a man of keen mind, you may feel this loss. You may even feel this loss of passion. You'll sense the changes partly in your day-to-day behavior and partly by way of the nostalgia fuel your living memory provides. Ironically, although the tragedy when viewed from an unbiased distance is immense, you won't feel the pain of passion loss as much as you should because you won't have the passion left to mourn it. Kind of how I imagine every old man gazes wistfully at a young, beautiful woman while his cock remains undisturbed by the commotion. Regrettably, there's nothing on offer that could guarantee you avoid this date with dispassionate destiny. But there are weapons that may help you beat back the gathering storm of brain reconfigured apathy and keep you seducing women in top form for decades to come. Number one, willpower. If you can sense it, you can slow it. The first step begins with self-awareness. Instead of bleakly shuffling into that fading light like a gelded automaton, turn your mental howitzers against the inevitability and embrace the fight. Go into battle knowing full well your defeat is assured, but that you'll have a blast blowing holes in as many passion-killing droids as you can center in your crosshairs. Number two, understand that experience can make up for some loss of passion. You will get better with women as you get older. This is a natural result of mastering the dating market learning curve and accepting the psychosexual foreignness of the female mind. Improvements in your knowledge and self-control will mitigate some decline in your baseline passion level. To put it more succinctly, you won't need as much animating passion to seduce new women at 30 as you did at 15. Number three, weightlifting, testosterone replacement therapy, etc. Testosterone is the FARC matter of the Pooniverse. It's soul juice. Speaking of which, let me take a sip of my soy juice here. Okay. It's the get her done drug. It's the molecular chakra that unites man's head, heart, and hogzilla. Weightlifting has been proven to raise T levels both temporarily and permanently. And this is true for most men who follow the law of iron. So does eschewing the modern high sugar, high carb fatty fest. So does eschewing the modern high sugar, high carb fatty fest. Refusing to allow your tea to sink into oblivion is a clarion call for more intrinsically summoned passion. Recent evidence finds that estrogen inhibitors may work better than testosterone boosters. I'll leave it to the reader to research the issue. Number four. Spermatogenesis. Warning, experimental territory. Enter at your own risk. He has a link to a comment there. He says, read this comment. It's anecdotal, but the associations he draws have some founding in the scientific literature, not to mention similarities with the conventional wisdom. Boost your sperm production and that wonderful I'm alive blue ball feeling through your interventions of NoFap, HCG, something called LJ100. Scrotum pressure is a pathway to scoundrel passion. Basically saying NoFap. I think that's what he's getting at there. Number 5, set an expiration date on all your long-term relationships. If you make it a principle to escape LTRs before the 2-year mark, you'll evade comfort zone entrapment and artificially reignite that dreamy teen passion for new experiences and thrills and screw the consequences. If you're me, that instead of a 2-year mark, that's more like a 6-month mark at the most. I can't think of a single time when I wanted to fuck the same girl past 6 months. Anyways, your brain will rewire itself to accommodate the new stress you put on it. Call it hormesis. Hormesis. Of course, as great as this is for your love life, it's as bad for the continuation of the species and a prosperous society. Maybe you'll figure you can contribute in a godly way to society later in life after you've had your fill of the best kind of pleasures and passions, in which case you'll want to save some of that archaic energy for your sequels. A killer is coming for you. Heed the immortal yearning of Roy Batty. I want more life, fucker. And follow him into that rain to die, kneeling as you were meant to, but not before proving to yourself and the world you'll damn your destiny on your feet. Yeah, that's the good one right there. It's one that I wanted to get to at some point in time. Let's look at the chat again here. This legal environment preys on a man's natural inclination to risk. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. What it's done for me personally is it makes me not want to lie to get pussy anymore, because then you can, they could probably construe that as a rape if you were not 100% honest with them about everything. But yeah, it certainly has had an impact on everybody. That's all that I had queued up. Let me just take another look through my bookmarks and see if I have anything else that I haven't read yet. That would be a good one. I have so many articles bookmarked. It's crazy. Not just from Roissy though, from old school Roosh articles and even some Rational Mail articles that I would read, but I'm not really into his blog at this point. All right, here's one more that's pretty cool. I remember this one. And I'll screen share it for y'all as well. Christ. Just bear with me, guys. I'm straight boomer tech right now. Okay, should be sharing now. So this article is called "Women's Worst Enemies Are Other Women," and it was written 5 years ago. This Jezebel hokum guzzlers have built a retarded empire on the fantastical premise that demonic men oppress angelic women, and that the end of such oppression would herald a femme utopia for land whales, skanks, proud sluts, transborgs, homonormatives, globular polyamorists, selfie abusers, and really cool smart chicks with pink hair who use the word douche canoe a lot and think that makes them a member of the literati. Except that out here in the real world where the rubber hits the hole, it's about as ass backwards a belief as anyone can diligently nurture in the face of contradictory facts. If stepping outside the confines of the gloomy bedroom internet portal and listening to science hold any quarter with the self-delusion set, they would have to recant everything they profess, for the facts show that women are the worst enemies of women. Who hurts women? Real rapists, as opposed to the phantasm regret rapist, very infrequently. Real rapists, as opposed to the phantasm of quote regret rapists, very infrequently hurt women. But the threat to women, as measured by the battle effectiveness and sheer force of enemy number, is other women. And here's a quote. The rumor spreading, shunning, and backstabbing of Mean Girls may be a relatively accurate picture of women's social interactions, one researcher says. Both men and women use such indirect aggression in relationships. Women use backbiting to demoralize competition and take sexual rivals out of the picture. Women do compete, and they can compete quite fiercely with one another, said Tracy Vaillancourt, the paper's author and psychology professor at the University of Ottawa. The form it typically takes is indirect aggression because it has low cost. The person making the attack doesn't get injured. Oftentimes, the person's motives aren't detected, and it still inflicts harm against the person they're aggressed against. And I'll just cut in here and add that it's also the case with male borderlines and male gammas and male narcissists, etc. They tend to take those same strategies used by women to take out competition, etc. Something I've noticed, and as I'm sure you have. Okay, so going back to Artiste here, why do women choose the tactically lower risk method of indirect attacks? Because of the fundamental premise that acts like a brain virus upon everyone's underlying psychology. Women are biologically the more valuable sex. And quoting again from the study, that led Vaillancourt to hypothesize that the behavior is rooted in humans' evolutionary past. But why would sneaky meanness have become so ingrained in the female repertoire? In short, because mean girl aggression works so well. Because of women's role in childbearing and rearing, they are less expendable than men and couldn't risk injury by settling disputes with their fists, said Anne Campbell, an evolutionary psychologist at Durham University in the UK, who was not involved in this study. Instead, social exclusion and talking behind someone's back allowed women to work out conflicts without endangering their bodies. Unquote. This research lends support to the suspicion that the feminist zeal to cavalierly throw around the accusation of misogyny at men is really a classic case of psychological projection of their own states of mind. Or only a real misogynist would impute misogyny to everyone else's motives. You have to be one to know one, right, ladies? In related crime thoughts, those who drop the racist accusation on the slimmest pretexts are likely themselves raving racists. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Not only does such cattiness make the targeted women too sad and anxious to compete in the sexual market, some studies suggest it can make men find rivals less attractive, providing the bad-mouthing comes from a cute woman, Vaillancourt said, unquote. Yeah, that last part is the crucial condition. A thug bad-mouthing a hottie has about as much influence over a man's judgment of female attractiveness as another man would. That is to say, none. What would be interesting to follow up on would be an experiment that examined the reactions of hotties and thugs to social ostracism by other women. My bet is that hotties can withstand female cattiness a lot better than can uglier women, because hotties have constant feedback from men that their worth in their sexual market is unassailable. Quote, women often punish perceived sexual transgressions, Vaillancourt said. Studies in dozens of countries have found that women use indirect aggression against other women for being too sexually available, Vaillancourt said. It's women who suppress other women's sexuality because if sex is a resource, then more sexually promiscuous women lower the price of it. Unquote. Slut walks sloganeering notwithstanding to the contrary, most slut shamers are other women. Men may avoid sluts for marriage, but they won't shame them. Why shame a snatch freebie from landing in your lap? I'll just interject there and say that spurned guys will always shame sluts, but that's just because they don't fuck them, which is a different matter altogether. All right. Quote from the study. One way to avoid the most destructive effects of girls' indirect aggression is to make sexual policing less powerful, Campbell said. We want to achieve a situation where that accusation of promiscuity had no power, where we don't have that double sexual standard, Campbell said. But how we get there, I don't know. Good luck with that. She may as well try to get humans to subsist on hemlock. Quoting again from the study, and women don't compete over things they don't value, Valancourt said. So women who put less emphasis on dating or women who are past their sexual peak are less likely to engage in mean girl behavior, at least where men are concerned. Unquote. The sexual market is the one market to rule them all. So women backbite, backstab, and fall back from attacking other women when the heat comes around the corner. That's just some real talk the Jezebelers assiduously sweep under their gnarly rugs. The fembot soul serrating doesn't stop there. What other sins against women that feminists routinely accuse men of are committed by women in that least equal measure? Well, how about objectification? Quote, a new study has confirmed something women have been complaining about for years. The research out of the University of Nebraska-Lincoln and published in the Springer published journal Sex Roles essentially corroborates a belief that people tend to focus more on the breasts and figure of a woman than analyzing her appearance than they do in her face. People tend to focus first on the important information about a woman, in other words. Quoting again, unsurprisingly, women with narrow waists, full breasts, and larger hips, the classic hourglass figure, were rated more favorably than their less voluptuous counterparts, even when men were asked to assess a woman's personality rather than attractiveness based on her appearance in the photos. But perhaps what's most interesting is that women also tended to objectify other females in the same way that men did. They too spent more time focusing on figure than face. Unquote. Can you believe the nerve of those men? Hold up, wait a sec. Those women objectifying women that way? I can't even. Wow, just wow. Creepers. Feminism will go down in history along with her parent ideology, equalism, as the stupidest potpourri of delusions ever propagated by a mass of degenerates sufficient in number and influence to dump their poison into the public's ear. The chateau stands ancient and true, thwarting the Lord of Lies at every point of attack. Quoting again, generally speaking, people are more positive towards a more attractive woman than a less attractive one, the lead researcher Sarah Jaravis said. However, attractiveness may also be a liability because while evaluating them positively, gazers still focus less on individuating and personalizing features such as faces and more on the bodies of attractive women, unquote. There's an important game concept tucked in the crevice of this quote. Can anyone find it? Answer, thermal exhaust port. Hot women have weaknesses, primarily among them the nagging fear that they're only loved for their bodies. You, as an aspiring assaulter of the pink abyss, can exploit this point of id entry into the attractive female's ego. Disqualify and challenge. I only hang with women who have something going for themselves besides their looks. Then assuage and connect. I know people judge you on superficial stuff and how tough it makes it for you to find someone who can connect with you on a deeper level. I think this would probably be, something for your 10s and your 9s and 10s. A cute girl's ego is like a finicky vineyard. You must first coax the fruit to their exquisite ripeness by introducing slight stresses to the soil of her self-conception. You must avoid overwatering and over-fertilizing, which can cause the grape, the ego, to become too plump and lacking in distinction. And finally, you must pluck her exercise ego at the perfect moment and turn it into a fine wine that she is eager to pour a glass of herself for you to appreciate. Yeah, pretty much what he said. The top comment here is quote from H.L. Mencken, misogynist, a man who hates women as much as women hate one another. Yep, some more classic artiste for you here. I'll see if I can find like another couple of articles here. Lately, I haven't actually read any of his more recent articles just because they're more politically focused, less humorous. I prefer the more game focused articles just because they're funny and more educational, more interested in what I'm more aligned with my interests, I guess you could say. Um, Boniface Martin asks in the chat, why are you not into rational mail? Uh, just I don't know. I lost interest in his content years ago. It was there was really only a handful of articles that he had that I liked, and I think I do have some of them saved on here that I will try to pull up. But for the most part, it just wasn't. He's not a doer. Like he's been married for a long time. I don't really want to read his input on uh, on game when he's like not even in the running. He's not even out there doing any of the stuff that he preaches. But he did have a couple of uh, of good articles, and I'm trying to find one right now to pull up. Shit. Trying to remember what it was called. I think it was like something about like hyper. Yeah, it was a hypergamy article. You know what? I'll save that for next time. For right now, I think I'm gonna wrap this up. I gotta take care of a couple things. Got to get up under that squat rack, you know. But to all you guys, all 7 of you listening, thanks for sticking around. I came back, I logged into this channel, and I had like 100 new subscribers that I didn't have the last time. And I figure, shit, people are still listening. So maybe you should just deliver a bit more content, reward you for that. So I'll try to make this a more often thing than I've been doing. I know it's been probably like a year since I put up any of the videos. Check out the backlog of content on my channel for more readings. And until next time.